Good morning. I'm John Lummis. I'm the president here at the Upstate SC Alliance, and thank you for joining us again this morning for Coffee and TeleConversation. I hope your week's going well. I first of all want to thank our sponsors of Coffee and Conversation, Roebuck Buildings, who supported the first half of this year's events, and MTC Federal Credit Union for sponsoring the second half of the series. And I appreciate the support of both companies during May. We have with us this morning Bob Quinn. He's the president of the South Carolina Research Authority, also known as SCRA. And SCRA fuels South Carolina's innovation economy by accelerating technology-enabled growth in research, academia, entrepreneurship, and industry. Bob and SCRA are one of our great allies here at the Upstate Alliance, particularly in technology and innovation-driven entrepreneurship, building small companies. And a lot of our focus here at the Upstate Alliance is on these landing pad type technology companies that we're trying to bring to the Upstate. So I'm really glad to have him on board today, and we're going to hear more from him right now. And I'd like to turn it over to Bob. We'll also have questions that you can ask, and then at the end of the session, I'll be providing those to Bob, and we'll move forward. So, Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, John. It's my pleasure. I wish I could be there in person, but we're all living in interesting times right now. I'm glad we're able to do this virtually. I'm going to show my screen here, and you tell me if we're good to go on the visuals there. Do you see my presentation?
Yeah. Yes, we can see it, Bob. Thank you.
All right, very good. So good morning, everyone. And before I start, I want to highlight a picture that's right on the cover slide here in the upper corner there. This was an event that we had at the governor's mansion last year. And the young lady is holding a teaching robot named Abby. This is a product that is provided by a company called Venn Robotics, one of our portfolio companies, and I'll explain what that means in the presentation. Their CEO, Laura Boconfuso, was on Shark Tank last week. Unfortunately, she did not get a investment from the sharks. It was a little premature. They filmed it last September, and if she had waited until this September, I think it would have been a very different outcome because they had great traction between September and February. But then with the COVID pandemic and children learning at home, their company is growing exponentially. So just one example of the types of companies we support through our programs. There we go. Well, pardon me. We got a little technical difficulty here. Bear with me. Now we're going. So John in his introduction talked about our mission, and we accomplished that through 4 major programs. SC Launch, supporting early stage entrepreneurial companies, SC Ventures, supporting those startups, but also those that are closer to an exit, like an initial public offering or an acquisition. SC Ventures also supports more established industry in the state. SC Academic Innovations, as the name implies, focuses on academic institutions and companies affiliated with those institutions. And then, as the Venn diagram indicates, the real magic is the intersection of 2 or more of these programs. And we often use our facilities to facilitate those interactions. All told, we own and or manage over 1.3 million square feet of office and laboratory space throughout the state. Just some metrics from last fiscal year. We're on a July 1 to June 30 fiscal year. Our overall economic impact on the state of South Carolina was just short of $700 million. We facilitated or supported over 4,100 jobs in South Carolina, and there are 42 companies that are currently located in our facilities. So going through each one of the programs and just giving you a brief highlight of each. So through SC Launch, we support technology-based early stage companies in a variety of ways. We give them mentoring, both from our staff, many of whom have started and succeeded in companies themselves, but also a network of resource partners throughout the state. They're also eligible for grants, and I'll give more detail on those types of grants. And then companies are eligible for investments, early stage, pre-seed or seed round investments. Now, as a publicly affiliated organization, we're a public nonprofit corporation that were chartered by the General Assembly in 1983. As such, SCRA is banned from making direct investments ourselves. So therefore, we set up an affiliate, SC Launch Incorporated. Our staff does all of the due diligence, the vetting of companies, but the ultimate investment decisions are made by the board of SC Launch Inc., which is comprised of 9 volunteers and currently chaired by Pete Dunphy, who is the CFO of Milliken Worldwide Services. So grants are designed to de-risk the company and or the technology affiliated with the company. And they range in size from, say, $25,000 to $50,000. The project development fund grants, the PDFs, are for more early stage investments or companies, while the acceleration grants are those companies that are at the cusp of being ready to approach the SC Launch Inc. board. In terms of those investments, it could be multiple rounds or multiple tranches of investments. Excuse me. Typically, a round would be in the 200,000 range, but we've done as much as 350. And as I say, a company can have 2 or 3 different rounds during its lifetime. The key is then to evolve them into getting investment from angel investors and venture capitalists and strategic investors. So one of the ways to make this program self-sustaining and long-term are successful exits. And often, because we are often the first investor beyond friends and family, it can be many years between the time we make our initial investment and when there is an exit. In this particular case, a company called Engaged Talent, it was relatively quick. Our first investment was 2015. And they had a successful exit of an acquisition in 2019. They're a human resources IT company. We did 2 rounds of investment in them, and then they were acquired by a company called Workforce Logic, which is in turn owned by the Carlyle Group, which I'm sure all of you know is one of the, if not the largest private equity firm in the country. So when our state is attracting the attention of companies like Carlyle, we know that we're doing something right and we're fighting above our weight class. Some SC Launch numbers, I mentioned 4,100 jobs total. You can see SC Launch is a major contributor to that with over 2,700 jobs. Importantly, the average salary of those jobs is over $71,000, or more than $30,000 greater than the statewide average. So not only are we helping to create jobs, but these are high-paying jobs. One metric that we measure closely, I already sort of alluded to, and that is attracting funding from others after we make our initial investment. Over the now almost 14 years of the SC Launch program, we have provided over $51 million in investments and grants. That has led to follow-on investments from VCs, angels, et cetera, now exceeding $1.1 billion. And when you consider that the vast majority of those investments are coming from those out of the state, that's an influx of over $1 billion that otherwise would not have occurred. So it's a real testament to the quality of the companies in which we are investing. So SC Academic Innovations, if you read the enabling legislation that first was enacted in '83, creating us, had 9 objectives, and 5 of those 9 called out the desire of the General Assembly for us to support academic institutions within the state. And so obviously that's very important to our mission. Despite that, for the first 33 years of our existence, there wasn't a document to serve as the template or the foundation for how we go about providing that support. So I came on board in August of 2016, and by December of that year, we had negotiated and executed a strategic cooperation agreement signed by myself and the presidents of the 3 research universities, Clemson, MUSC, and USC. But the signatories agreed that we would use that not as a foundation, not only for supporting those 3 institutions, but all academic institutions throughout the state. And so there are 3 major areas of focus for that support: to create and enhance academic startups, to increase total capital investment in our institutions and the companies affiliated with those institutions, and then to foster applied and collaborative research. So we do that by providing a series of grants. Some of these grants, like the SBIR, STTR matching, go to early stage companies affiliated with academia. So SBIR, the Small Business Innovation Research, and STTR, Small Business Technology Transfer, are grants given by federal government agencies to advance early stage companies and technologies within those companies. But there are certain restrictions to that funding, and so we provide matching funds, particularly with a focus on commercializing the intellectual property that's developed. A variety of others that go directly to the institutions, such as the maturation grants, and the big one is called the SACT grants, or the SCRA Academia Collaboration Team grants. And we're in the process, by the end of this fiscal year, we'll release requests for proposals for these 3-year projects, with the SCRA providing $3.6 million to this program, and then these would need to be matched by the academic institutions as well. So we're talking about not an inconsequential amount of funds, and they will be focused on 3 major areas: biomedical sciences, Industry 4.0, and cybersecurity. One good example of how we as an organization can coalesce the different academic institutions towards a common objective is the South Carolina Medical Device Alliance. 2 years ago, we won an award from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, and our partners were Clemson and MUSC. The idea here is to have a structured program for the commercialization of medical device technology and intellectual property within our state, with an initial focus on those projects coming out of the capstone program in the biomedical engineering program at Clemson. That's the first year focus was on those technologies, but as the program continues, we'll be getting intellectual property from multiple sources throughout the state. The ultimate objective is to commercialize these technologies, and in particular to create startup companies around them. Because what was happening in these capstone projects, they were phenomenal ideas coming out, but then the students graduated, went on to other adventures, and nothing then happened as far as a follow-up. What we're doing is building graduate level teams led by a senior executive that would advance these technologies to a more commercializable state. And then we have entrepreneurs and residents that are looking for the best opportunities to create startup companies around. It's one example of a company, it's a Clemson affiliated company that we have provided support in 2 ways to, and that is Alastrin Therapeutics. So they have a technology that targets the elastic fiber that makes, for example, arteries work. And so they help to then treat damaged arteries. But they also believe that it would be used to improve the damage to lungs that occur through COVID-19. So we not only provided them with the SBIR matching, but recently we provided funding under our COVID-19 program, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So in SC Ventures, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, has two major areas of focus, and one is to support more established industry within the state. They do that in a variety of ways, such as running a forum to share open innovation best practices. So this forum is comprised of normally the chief technology officers of major companies within the state, and they meet on a regular basis to share those best practices. They also will engage with industry, understand what their most pressing needs are, and then scout for technology-based solutions to those needs. And so they may come from an entrepreneurial company, they may come from our academic institutions or others. And then we serve then as the broker, if you will, to facilitate that relationship. Sometimes we will provide funding to further de-risk the technology so that the industry partner is more amenable to having the relationship. But any funding we provide must be matched by that industry partner, because we want to be all in terms of these projects. We also work with entities such as the Alliance and local economic development agencies to recruit in technology-based companies. It's obviously also the SC Department of Commerce, where they can provide incentives, tax incentives, et cetera. We can couple that with direct funding to underwrite the cost associated with that relocation. But I will stress again that the companies that we are focusing in are those that have a very strong technology foundation. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, and this is a new focus for SC Ventures, and that is to support companies that are still startups but are closer to an exit, like an IPO or an acquisition, and help them to acquire VC funding and to identify those types of partners, as well as strategic investors. Because a lot of companies are now creating corporate venture capital groups. That has really mushroomed over the last few years. There's a conference every year for CVCs, and each year the size of the participation has gone up rather markedly. And so we've established strong relationships with a number of those corporate venture capital groups as well. Here's a representative example of a demonstration grant. It's a company out of Duncan, C-Dotton. They have a technology that combines both augmented reality and mixed reality for the delivery of learning content. And so a project that we funded involved Spartanburg Community College as well as Millikan. There were two colleges or two departments within Spartanburg Community, the nursing school as well as the engineer school. And so, as you can imagine, the nursing school was a focus not with Millikan, but with a partner with Spartanburg General. And that has been extremely successful to the point where it's now being deployed at Spartanburg General. And the community college has reconfigured its curriculum to very much inculcate the use of the C-Dotton technology. And so there's a follow-on project associated with this as well. So it's a really good success story that otherwise would not have occurred without the infusion of the money associated with the demonstration grant. And so the amount for these demonstration grants as well as the relocation will vary. Generally in the 50,000 range. We've gone as much as 100,000. We have a lot of flexibility in this regard. And then finally, our facilities, I mentioned the 1.3 million square feet. We have an innovation center affiliated with each of the 3 research universities. So the Duke Energy Innovation Center in Anderson obviously is the one affiliated with Clemson. We also have a facility in Somerville, it's where I'm located, the Applied Technology Center. And one that's not on here is the research park that we manage outside of Columbia. And then there's one more facility, it's brand new, and that's in Charleston, the 22 West Edge facility. This is adjacent to MUSC. It's a 156,000 square foot facility. We have leased the entire top floor as well as another 5,000 square feet on the 4th floor. This is different than our other models, whereas we own the other buildings that I cited before. In this one, we are leasing and then subleasing. And in this case, the idea is to provide a platform for more established life sciences companies. And so it's company Vicor Scientific was in our innovation center in Charleston. They quickly outgrew that. And otherwise, without a facility like this that had wet lab space, et cetera, they very well may have had to move outside the state. And so that's what this was all about, is to provide that infrastructure for some companies like that to grow. And grow they have in that among their other products, they have a panel for the measurement of 40 respiratory viruses or pathogens, I should say. One of those being COVID. So as you can imagine, they have grown by leaps and bounds to the point where they just expanded for another 3,000 square feet within 22 West Edge. They're already outgrowing it. And finally, with regard to our COVID response, we felt that it was very important that we step up and be a contributor to solutions to this pandemic and the associated economic downturn. So we've dedicated an additional $1.5 million this fiscal year towards that effort. We deploy that in a number of ways. One is technology investments. So these would be solutions for the COVID-19 pandemic. And the first investment that we made was in precision genetics out of Greenville. This is a company, a molecular diagnostics company that had focused in areas such as cancer. And then with the outbreak of the pandemic, within a 3-week period, they pivoted to focusing on COVID testing. We learned about them, and literally within a little over a week, we went from first engagement to handing them the money with the SC Launch Inc. board meeting on an emergency basis. That is a new record with regard to turnaround. Normally, our due diligence process could take a number of months, but in this case, we did essentially 3 to 4 months of due diligence in 3 to 4 days. They are off and running. They are currently the sole external provider of COVID testing for Prisma, and they're also providing that support to Bon Secours as well. So they're doing extremely well. We have a number of other potential technology investments. Matter of fact, the SC Launching Board is meeting today, starting at 10. And in addition to a couple of, quote, normal investments that are on the docket, we have 3 technology investments that are being proposed, as well as 3 of these emergency assistance loans up to $75,000. These are for our current portfolio companies, that is the companies in which SC Launch Inc. has already invested, that are being inordinately affected negatively by the economic downturn. So this is a way to shore them up, hopefully in addition to getting the PPP and EIDL funding from Small Business Administration. And so we're very heartened by the impact that those funds are having on those companies as well. And then finally, we have technology grants. These are smaller in size, $50,000. they're also focused on those solutions for COVID-19. Because they're grants, we're able, SCRA ourselves, to award those without going through the SC Launching Board. And then finally, just some representative examples of how our current client companies are stepping up and providing solutions for COVID-19. Those that are bolded are those in the upstate. So I'll just highlight a few. ActiveEd is a company founded by Julian Reed, a professor at Furman, that, as the name sort of implies, it's all about active education and active learning. And during these times when all that learning is occurring at home, they are doing exceedingly well and actually have provided their platform free of charge. The feedback has been tremendous, and they're literally now in scores of countries around the world as well. Blue Eye Soft is an AI company that has licensed the technology from the University of Dayton and then has improved upon that, which will allow physicians and others to detect and diagnose COVID-19 from an X-ray. So this could very well be a game changer, because you'll be able to get determination in real time. So no lag time between testing and the results. I mentioned the Lastrin. Huwaki. One of the things that I believe has not gotten as much press as it deserves is the dearth of swabs for taking samples. Believe it or not, there's only one swab company in the United States, and really there are only 3 major ones in the world, one in Italy and one in China, and then one in the United States. So as such, there's been a real shortage of swabs, and obviously without those, very difficult to be taking samples. Huwaki is a company that's been affiliated with us for over a decade. They have a microsurfacing technology, and they have turned on a dime and deployed that towards improving the tip of these swabs, as well as the comfort level of the swabs themselves. They actually are on the agenda today for a technology investment, and they already have their first order for 1 million swabs, and I'm sure there'll be many thereafter. Umimic is providing shields. Kayatech, part of their core competency, is offering RNA extraction services for others. Module out of the Clemson area has a technology that's used for employee safety, but they've reconfigured it in terms of monitoring and screening for employee health, which obviously will be vital as we all return to work. Sharpen Health provides a platform for mental health, and so they are deploying that for the founders and leaders of startup companies. Very high stress moment for them, but also for medical providers. As you can well imagine, they are undergoing a tremendous amount of stress, and so we want to be able to ensure that they are healthy both physically as well as mentally. And then finally, Xylo Therapeutics has a platform for the slow release of pharmaceuticals. And so they're deploying that for nitric oxide for the treatment of pulmonary treatment. So in terms of the sort of like a Lastrin, in terms of the long-term treatment for the pulmonary ramifications of COVID. In their case, it's more immediate, can be deployed right at the bedside, where Lastrin is more of a long-term treatment solution. So as you can see, the range is from PPE all the way to long-term treatment. There's been a lot of focus on PPE, but there are other elements in terms of tackling the ramifications of this disease that need to be focused on. And as you can see, these companies are doing so in a rather ubiquitous way. And so we're quite proud of them and quite proud of contribution that we can make to have them succeed. So this is just a highlight of some of the ways that we are using our social media and other outlets to really celebrate what these companies are doing. And we look forward to continuing to work with them towards succeeding and overcoming what has been a dramatic impact on us as a society. So with that, I'll finish my remarks and look forward to addressing any questions you might have. Thanks.
I'll thank you. That's incredible information, particularly very interested in all the companies in the upstate that are focused in on PPE and those that y'all have helped. That's quite a list of companies that y'all are assisting and funding. One thing I wanted to ask, we at the Upstate Alliance right now are looking to shift some of our recruiting focus to PPE, pharmaceuticals, medical device, things of that nature. Number one, I'm just so glad we have y'all out here to help us with some of this. And I want to know if you have any thoughts on some things that we should look at, you know, moving forward into this area, type of companies that we can look at, things of that nature.
Yeah. Well, we as a state and the upstate region in particular have some real strengths in the medical device area. I mentioned the biomedical engineering program at Clemson, world-class, a number of companies like Arthrex. So you have world-class companies moving in as well. That's a strong foundation upon which to build and which to recruit other companies, because they very much want to be part of an ecosystem where they know that there is a support system, there's a supply chain, there's the academic infrastructure that they can tap into. So medical devices in toto is, I think, a great place for us to focus. And then with regard to PPE, there's a mad rush right now in terms of companies around the country and around the world trying to fill that void. The need isn't going to go away from this first wave. But that one, because there's such a mad rush, we need to be maybe a little more careful in terms of recruiting a company like that. They better have something that's highly differentiated, I think, in order for them to be able to succeed in the long run, rather than just get an influx of early cash and then not be able to sustain it beyond the first wave. Beyond that, we can go into greater detail on a one-by-one basis, and we look forward to having that dialogue with you.
Thank you. One of the companies that's up on the screen now, Module, that's a really cool one. I think those are the kind of companies that utilize, you know, the mobile app and other AI things to help us with some of this as well. So it's not, the manufacturing part is going to be very important, but also a lot of these technology companies that we're well positioned to work with here moving forward, I think is great.
Without a doubt. One of the things I mentioned how we're about to release the RFP for the funding to academic institutions. And I mentioned the three areas, one of them being biomedical sciences. There are two sub areas within that. One is regenerative medicine and the other is medical devices. And we brought together a business science advisory board. And that particular board, Biomedical Sciences, is comprised of 22 world-class individuals, many in the state, but some outside of the state, and did a SWOT analysis on how South Carolina stacks up vis-a-vis other states. And we really are starting from a position of strength there upon which to build. You know, Module, even though it's not literally a medical device per se, it's very much tied to, and particularly with this pivot to the screening of employee health, it really is a medical device in that respect. So just one representative example. And now the module is founded by retired executives from the insurance industry. And they selected to be located within Clemson because of the strength of the students and the research that was taking place there. So a real testament to being able to recruit individuals of that caliber to the region because of the quality of the students and the research that is taking place.
Bob, that is really interesting. And again, these are the kind of companies that we are looking to bring here to the upstate. High technology companies, along with the manufacturing companies that we can work with. So I don't think we have any other questions from the audience at this point. I really just thank all of our investors for being with us. We had good participation again this morning. And I think it's really, this series has been really good, and we're going to continue to have this as we move forward. We will be having next week, May 27th, we'll have the Technical College System President, Dr. Tim Hardy, and he's going to give us an update on what the tech system has been working on during the pandemic. And also about programs and how we're going to try to upskill the workforce as we move forward. So again, Bob, I want to really thank you for being with us today. Thanks for what you're doing. I think this is one of the greatest assets that we have in South Carolina to help with companies moving in here and helping companies that are here. So again, thank you so much, and we look forward to working with you further, okay?
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.